interview that I have right.
Prashant, carry on. Let me just actually toss it across to Shireen now, who's at the CIA budget headquarters with the panel of guests there. Shireen, over to you.
Well, thanks very much, guys. Consumption is the theme that's playing out, and we're seeing a recovery even as far as the markets are concerned. The Sensex moving back into positive territory, but the man with the biggest smile, Sanjiv Puri, the president of the CII, as well as the chairman of ITC here with us. Sanjiv, many, many thanks for coming back into our CNBC TV18 budget headquarters. Consumption, that middle-class boost that was being asked of, the finance minister perhaps doing more than even what industry was expecting. What do you make of it?
Absolutely. I think the relief to the middle class is very welcome, and it's going to certainly provide impetus to consumption and therefore, contributing to the virtuous cycle of investment and employment. And this was much needed at this point of time. Of course, we do expect interest rates also to come off in February to reduce, and that should provide some further impetus. But the larger point of this also would be that this is the immediate relief. But a lot of sectors that have been touched upon in the economy are areas that which are very labor intensive.
Right.
And the economic activity increasing in those areas will have larger impact on employment generation.
Footwear, toys, tourism, all being identified as sectors.
Even agriculture.
Yeah.
It has enough people, but
healthcare.
Income can improve. Income can improve. So all this itself actually feeds into the virtuous cycle of, therefore, consumption and investments. So there are measures for the immediate and measures that will also unfold over a period of time. So from that perspective, I think is a very, very, very positive.
But, in terms of growth and in terms of providing that consumption boost, I mean, realistically, what are we talking about, given what the finance minister's already announced in the budget? As you pointed out in the morning, rural had picked up, urban was still suffering. Do you believe that this could alleviate the pain?
You see, it will certainly provide some impetus, and there are multiple things that come together. Right? For example, social security for gig workers. That will provide relief on medical expenses.
Yeah.
So a lot of pieces like that are there in the budget, and as I said, as employment comes in employment intensive sectors, that further provides boost. So we'll have to look at the full picture. This is one element of it.
One element of it. Rajiv, Memani, let's look at that particular element as far as the tax cuts are concerned. Revenue foregone of 1 lakh crore rupees on the direct taxes side, 2,600 crores on the indirect tax side. But the signal that the government has sent out clearly saying that, look, we want to come in and provide a shoulder to the middle class. The big takeaway, we've of course got two big elections, Delhi right around the corner and Bihar, and that's the message the government's sending out.
Yeah, I think, I think we've had pre-budget discussions. Everyone was expecting relief for the lower and middle income. But this extent of relief, I don't recollect, has been given 1 lakh crore in personal tax, which is almost, about 7 to 8% of the total personal tax collection that the government has. So I think it's a very significant relief. And overall, if you look at the overall theme from a tax standpoint, I think a lot of it is based on just simplification.
Right.
From the new income tax, 50% of the provisions coming down in the new income tax bill, that will be tabled next week. All the other things that they've also done, whether it's on TDS, TCS, all the other areas that have been laid out, a lot of that is on simplification. Also in continuity, no significant changes anywhere except addressing some, minor tweaks here and there. Unless if something is there in the final, then we don't know. But this government generally, whatever is on the table. IFSC always gets, they're trying to encourage and project IFSC more. That's there. And overall, the emphasis, whether you look at the economic survey or you look at the budget, this ease of doing business. And I think it is so important to unleash the spirits and to ensure that India achieves its full potential. I think that, setting up the committee, coming out with in the next 1 year, setting up some competitiveness among states, clearly recognizing that a lot of these things have to happen in states. I think that's a big change. And the pillars that they have identified, and focusing, some of which Sanjiv mentioned, focusing on those 4 or 5 pillars that are so critical for growth in the next 10, 15, 20 years, including nuclear power and change-making changes in the act. I think that was quite good to hear.
Yeah, a target of 100 gigawatts as far as nuclear power is concerned. Remember, the IEA has said that 2025 is likely to be a breakout year when we talk about nuclear energy. So India getting into the ring as far as small modules are concerned. But Chandrajit, Banerjee, what the finance minister has delivered on the consumption side, perhaps some disappointment on the capex side. Clearly not on the lines of what industry was expecting or even hoping for, but it's in line with what the government has been saying. So on balance, the balance has been done and the balance has delivered?
Absolutely. Of course, we talked about a 25% more. I mean, there's no restriction to asks, but
no, clearly there isn't. Clearly there isn't.
Yes, this was expected, and one had thought about that. But if you really look at the type of spend that one sees on the capex, which is still, I mean, quite reasonable in terms of if you compare it, what goes into rural infrastructure, even this about the states that 50-year interest-free, so all of that actually would help in crowd in even the private sector, which has been called a laggard, so to say, for some time. And I see that coming in because we see a focus on a lot through that will come through the consumption demand. So all in all, not really any disappointment with the capex which the government has done, because it has done more than to offset through the consumption demand.
Done more than what was expected, certainly on the consumption side. Sunil, Munjal, thanks very much for joining us. On balance, the big headlines, the big takeaways, what does the budget do to accelerate growth?
So actually the whole exercise, I think, was a balancing act between maintaining fiscal discipline, which the finance minister has put on herself over the last many years, at the same time figuring out a way to bring growth back in. So I think it's been done in multiple different ways. One is the building blocks, is on education, skilling, research, innovation, tech focus, that's very good. Second is picking specific sectors for high growth potential. Clean energy, deep tech, so the seeds, that's a massive area actually. What they've done in agriculture is a wide coverage. What I like is also focusing on some of the fundamentals, things like nutrition, things like the elderly, things like the farmer, small industry, export capability. So it's actually, I'm actually broadening the answer to your question, because I don't think it's only about that. It's not only about, growth is not something you can flick a switch and get tomorrow. But the tools have been put in place, and the point you were making just now about the higher liquidity in individual and families' hands will either go towards savings or investments or consumption, and all three will do good. Even if you say it's about 1/3 each, roughly. So you're talking about 30,000 crores coming into consumption this year. So some of it will need to go because personal and family balance sheets were getting a bit upset because there was over leverage taking place on individuals. I think some of that will go to offset that, as companies and banks have done over the last 7 or 8 years. So I think we will come out better, healthier, cleaner. I do hope, unlike what CB is saying, I was hoping that the infra spend would have been higher, because this consumption takes a little bit of while for the virtuous cycle to kick in. Consumption can start, but consumption leading into production, leading into additional capacity, leading to jobs is a bit of a time lag. So that's one miss from my side. But I guess to be able to maintain the 4.8 instead of 4.9 at the FISC was a pretty magical number.
Oh, and it certainly was a surprise that came in there after having delivered on the kind of cuts that they delivered on. But Sanjiv Puri, let's talk about those untapped sectors where the government hopes to unlock potential. Tourism, this identifying 50 cities, PPP with states, PPP with industry as well. I'm not sure what the details are, but also including hotels as part of the infrastructure harmonization scheme that they're talking about. What did you make of that? And, a lot of actually the schemes that were talked about are work in progress. The actual operationalization still has to be detailed. So what do you take away from many of the announcements that came in?
See, First of all, many of the specific interventions that are there, you alluded to some in tourism. Then there are others, for example, in exports. I think the integrated approach, cross-ministerial approach, I think is absolutely the one that is required, because in the morning also we spoke about some of the issues that have to be dealt with, which requires a cross-ministerial approach. And something CI has also been talking about, having an integrated approach. Looking at setting up this committee on ease of doing business.
Right.
And taking an integrated and focused approach on agriculture, 100 districts, all-round development.
Yeah.
Taking an integrated approach on rural, the non-farm development. Really sending some development and resilience hubs for rural areas. So these are very fine ideas, very good ideas, and certainly will unlock the potential in many, many areas. Creating a framework for GCCs. GCCs are already, doing well in India.
And massive job creators.
Massive job creation, and the world has demographic challenge. So it's a great opportunity for India, and to provide impetus to it, to make some, today it's happening on its own, without really any impetus or for specific interventions. So right now, to create a facilitative framework for this, I think it's going to provide further impetus to it. Then the whole idea about the strong point of reforms and collaborating with states. I think this will provide a lot of impetus, because a lot of reforms now need to be done at the state level. Right? So a lot of the right things are there. And I think what I'm very happy to note also is that there is a lot of clarity on the mechanisms that will be used to do it. It is not just a statement without an institutional mechanism.
Rajiv, Memani, the big headline for you as I say goodbye, at least as part of this session, but the big headline that you take away from what the finance minister has delivered.
I would say identifying the critical growth drivers for Viksit Bharat, ensuring that there is, as he rightly said, that there is a focused approach, interministerial approach for that, including ensuring that there is good state-to-state collaboration, and identifying all the levers, even AI, deep tech, global value chains. So at least the thought process of growth, the growth levers are very clear, and how you take that through. Now the main thing is, how these committees come, how the execution happens, and what changes on the ground.
It comes down to execution. CB.
So adding to what Rajiv said, I would think the National Manufacturing Mission. That's going to be very critical, because that's going to really cut across. And secondly, the element of trust, the Jan Vishwas Bill 2.0, that again is a very, very big takeaway for me.
Okay, Mr. Munjal, final word.
So the setting up of a group to review all rules, regulations de novo, I think is one of the most critical things which has not got enough airtime from any of you. Because for a long time, we've all been cribbing about excessive red tape. We've tinkered with the laws and rules for 50 plus years. We've scrapped many, we've decriminalized many, but it's not enough, because they were designed over 100 years ago. I think this is a fantastic move, other than making things easier for industry, accelerating M&A, and there's a whole bunch of things on that front, which I think are quite welcome.
Well, we'll have to wait at least a year for that committee to deliver its verdict on what will be axed, what will need to go, but a clear message being sent out by the budget. Mr. Munjal, CB, Rajiv, Memani, Sanjiv Puri, appreciate you joining us here on the CNBC TV18 budget headquarters as we digest what the budget will do in terms of growth and how it will propel the needle of the economy. We are going to take a break. We haven't taken one in a very long time. We're back in a moment with more. We leave you with where the markets are and come back for closing. Stay with us.